So as we know, Pope Francis has been infiltrated by the KGB. We know that he is taking secret memos from the Castro brothers, and pretty soon, when when Stalin's tomb is resurrected back in Moscow, this Pope will rip off his clerical collar and say, "Yes, comrades, the work of Soviet restoration is done." Well, you might think this if you've been reading Newsmax or listening to Rush Limbaugh or other fantasies about the new Pope. And some people, though, all kidding aside, literally have accused the Pope of being complicit with the KGB. Rush Limbaugh said he was talking, quote, pure Marxism, all because the Pope is talking about poverty, inequality, treating people like human beings. God forbid. He's saying markets should not be in this. Society is not in the service of markets. Markets are in the service of society. That's actually in a hardly a radical point. But Pope Francis was interviewed about this, and he was asked in an interview with an Italian newspaper, I believe, about the Marxism question. And Pope Francis said, "I'm not a Marxist. That's a wrong ideology. Marxist ideology is wrong, but, quote, I've met many Marxists in my life who are good people, so I don't feel offended." I love that he just totally brushed the shoulder off on that one. Sort of yeah, actually, I know a lot of Marxists who are really committed and care about incredibly important issues, so I'm not offended by some fantasist in the United States ranting and raving about me being something I'm not. But then he went on to reiterate and double down on his critique of trickle-down economics, which is, of course, the cause of the global crisis we face today. And he puts this really well. He said, this is Pope Francis talking again about trickle-down. The promise was that when the glass was half full, it would overflow, benefiting the poor. But what happens instead? What happens instead is that when the glass is full, it magically gets bigger. Nothing ever comes out for the poor, which is exactly right. This whole strategy, and that's one of the reasons why Republicans and the right need to turn back to just being directly adversarial, even towards their base, because there was a time in this country which, with a very well-organized right-wing machine and a compliant media, you had people like Jack Kemp running around talking about, conservatives who care about poverty and trickle-down economics is really the best way to lift everybody up and all this nonsense. And, even as that theory has been totally discredited, very few Democrats and leading national figures in that regard have been as clear as the Pope in calling out this nonsense. And it is a distinction because it's not a radical departure in Catholic doctrine to talk about poverty and talk about accountability, but the level of specificity of the failure of an economic strategy is pretty distinct, and clearly Pope Francis isn't going anywhere on it. Give you another story here. What do you think about Pope Francis, actually?
I'm
What do you?
one of those people who think, regardless of take Obama for example, or take we're talking about Pope Francis, but take Obama for example. I mean, regardless of the fact that he was unsure where he stood on gay marriage, and then he came out and supported it.
Are you talking about Obama?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm talking about Obama. Yes.
Okay,
I'm using him as an example.
Okay, I got you.
People were like, don't take, how Obama's just saying this or whatever. But it doesn't matter that he's just saying this. If it was, regardless of his position before, what he's saying now matters because it, in my opinion, it changed the outlook of a lot of people on certain things.
I think definitely.
So regardless of whether the Pope is really still in the same old Catholic Church as they were before when it comes to the economic issues, because obviously the Catholic Church is still against gay marriage.
Well, they've actually always been pretty good on economic issues.
Yes, but I mean, I think the Pope coming out, with atheists, with him, even with gays, he's again, like I said, he's not for gay marriage, but he's...
No, but he said, let's tone it down a little bit. Let's stop being ridiculous.
I think it's important thing for him to say. I think it changes the outlook of you'll get a lot of Catholics who may have not been so liberal before, look at these issues and again, even if they're still in the Catholic Church position of no gay marriage is wrong, they won't demonize gay people,
Right.
And I think when you have a person of authority saying something like that on social issues, economic issues, whatever, I think it makes a lot of people stop, think, and reevaluate.
The Pope has been compromised by the Communist Party. Little right-wing Mandela. Sorry.
No, but I think it's I feel the same about when a celebrity goes out for a cause, regardless of whether you think, Lady Gaga cares about gay marriage, or whether you think, some actor who's out there for environmental rights cares about the environment as much as they say they do, or if they put their money where their mouth is or whatever. Just having them out there talking about it really makes certain people who look up to these people think differently.
Well, no, and I mean, with the Pope, obviously, I think what's so fascinating, though, the real distinction you see is that, and Sam's talked about this, is that when the Catholic Church is just focusing on demonizing gay people and on the social issues, they've been propped up by the right. So now when he comes back out and flips it around and says, look, the main crisis today is the tyranny of a certain brand of capitalism, which is literally grinding the life out of people. And it's fundamentally amoral to have the sweatshop fire in Bangladesh. It's fundamentally amoral to, take massive bonuses while people are starving. It's fundamentally amoral to not have health care, to not have education, to have a youth unemployment crisis. Then the same people who've been propping up an institution have that institution turn back on them. And that's why there's the meltdown. So I think,
I mean, let's take even just what the Pope just said about the Marxist thing, the Marxist comment.
Right.
He comes out, says, I'm not a Marxist.
Right.
Makes those certain groups happy. Oh, good, our Pope's not a Marxist, because that would make me think twice about him. Right. So now they're 100% on his side. I'm not saying this is his strategy, but this is what will probably...
He's pretty strategic.
He's strategic, but I'm not coming out and saying this is a strategy. But still, so he still has them. But then he goes on to say, but I know people who are Marxists and they're good people.
Right.
So he doesn't, what he says doesn't lose value to that group of people. But at the same time, he's able to get them, I don't agree with Marxist ideology, but maybe there are some, maybe they're not such bad people. Let's not demonize them like certain far right groups do.
Absolutely.
It's little things like that. I really do think, it works. Maybe not people who listen to this program, but for the common public who's doesn't have the time or the interest maybe to be as politically aware, politically involved, knows what's going on in the news 24/7. They're not news files. I think that really does affect their psyche and how they think of things.
No, I think that's a really good. I think that's exactly right. And I think he's affecting the psyche, a broader psyche, and a lot of really important issues.